Today, my spiral binder that I've had for years is the star of the show because it's all about spiral bound notebooks. Be sure to subscribe and stay to the end for show and tell. Hi, welcome back to my craft room. A couple of weeks ago, I showed you a little notepad that I had made using my coil binder. And I had a couple of comments of people asking to know more about the coil binder and notebooks. And so I want to refer you back to my 13 ideas and new things that I've learned about organizing and keeping my craft room so it's usable and clean. And so today I wanted to just talk a little bit about homemade notebooks, which is one of our favorite things. And my daughter Lindsay and I did a notebook tutorial. I'll link it up top so that you can see that. And we made several different notebooks, and so you can see how to make those. But today I want to talk a little bit more about that coil binder. And I have my coil binder here with me. And I've had this binder for many, many years, and I've used it so often with school and home projects and all kinds of things. And so I want to show you some ideas for using the coil binder, for using faux leather and snaps, and let's bring that all together. So let's get started on some information about coil binding. And of course, I am going to link the material in the description box below. Now, my coil binder is very old. I've had it for a very, very long time. They don't make this exact model anymore, but I'll find one that is as close as possible to the one I use because it has held up so well over many, many years. And then stay to the end and I'll show you some of the interesting little books and things that we've made with the coil binder and how we've used it in our family. And that doesn't even mention how it's been used in school. But if you stay to the end, I'll give you a little bit of a show and tell of coil bound notebooks. So let's get started. Today, besides my coil binder, I'm going to be using my KamSnap snap press, and we're going to be making what some people call a junk journal, where it's a place for memories, for photos, for notes, ideas, whatever you want to do with it. And so my cousin and good friend Melody talked to me several months ago, showed me her junk journal and introduced me to this whole idea. So to make this junk journal, I want to have a cover. And I have these bits of cardboard that are left over from my fabric organization video, and you can take a look at that. And so I want to use some of that comic book card that I have left, and that's going to be the covers for my little spiral bound junk journal. And then I'm going to have a snap that closes it. So it's going to be spiral bound and snapping. And I'm going to be using this little notepad of scrapbook paper that I already have. And I've used quite a bit of it, so I'm kind of using up some of that. And this one measures 6 by 6. And so I'm going to cut these down to 6 by 3. So it's going to be 6 inches this way, 3 inches this way, so that I have a 3 by 6 little junk journal. And then I can go ahead and use this paper. And so besides cutting those down, I'm going to take paper out of that little notepad, and I'm going to cut some of them at 3 by 6. Some of them I'm going to leave a little bigger, but put a fold in them. So I'm just going to be kind of manipulating that paper, creating some different shapes, openings, pockets out of the paper, as well as cutting this down to a 3 by 6. right, now to get started, I'm going to show you how we set this. And remember, every coil binder is a little bit different. So when you get yours, make sure you read the little booklet and set it the way you would like it. This gives me my edge. So my first little hole for my binder is going to be really close to that edge, and I rarely move this. That pretty much always stays there. This is the gauge that shows how deep I want that that binding to be. So for example, I have mine set at 4, and let me just show you how this is. So the number 4, that's how many millimeters I am from this edge to the row of dots. So I'm going to change it. Let's move it to 5, and then you can compare. So you can see that 5 is a little bit deeper this way. And let's go down to 2. And I'll put that, actually, let me put 2 here. And my binder has 4 different options. I have a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. And then this is the 3 that I'm going to show you. And you see how easy it is to use. So you can see that you're getting deeper and deeper. So this is 2 millimeters, 3, 4, and 5. So you get to choose where you want that. I typically keep mine at 4 just because of the type of things I do. I need a little bit more of reinforcement here so that it doesn't fall apart. So I typically keep it at 4. But when you're doing a project, once you set that depth, you don't want to change that, because you want every paper for that one project to be punched at the same depth. So just, if you're going to change it, you change it before you start. But once you start, don't change that. So this is super easy. So what I'm going to do is just start gathering together my papers. I'm going to tap them all together so they're all lined up here. Now, I'm not worrying. Some of them will be higher, some of them will be lower. And my cousin says that's just how it works with the junk journal. So my heavy card, I want to make sure that I punch those separately alone, because this is thick and I want the binder to easily go through, which it does. So I'm just always going to line up right there at the end of my gauge here. And then those are going to be my covers to this little journal, okay? Now remember, you can change this to any size you want. So then I'm going to come through and I'm going to make sure this edge where I've lined everything up is always inside the binder, and I push it back as far as it'll go. And you make sure your handle is all the way up when you push your paper in. And then you bring your handle down, and so you see it will cut through several layers all at once. And then what I do is I take that, I lay it face down, pick up my next several pages, tap them together, make sure they're laying flat, like that, get them in there. And I just go through and I'm going to keep punching those holes and then flipping. Okay, so I'm going to get them together as best I can. And then I'm using, I think this is a 1/2 inch coil. And I'm just going to start and make sure that my binding is just going through and picking up each little page there. Now, before I get too far, I'm just going to go through and make sure all of the little pieces are caught and that I don't have any pages that are now left out, not being grabbed by the coil. See, there's one. So I need to make sure that it gets caught in that very next rotation of the coil. There. Okay, So I've gone through to make sure that all of the odd shaped ones are now incorporated and will be caught in that binding. And then just look how quickly this binding goes, and every now and then, okay, there's that one. I've just got to readjust, and it's okay. Not hard at all. And in fact, once you get going, it's not even tedious. It's kind of fun because it just goes so quickly. Okay, and I just keep going, twirling the binding until I get all the way through all of the holes. Okay, now let me talk just a little bit about these pages that hang out. Now, when my cousin taught me about junk journals, she says, this doesn't matter. You can have big pages, little pages, whatever. And so I thought, well, I'll give that a try. And to tell you the truth, it kind of bugs me. And so what I'm going to do, this one, because I've got a nice little line here, I'm going to go ahead and just use that as my guide. And I'm just going to trim that down. And the other reason I'm doing this, besides that it kind of bugs me that it pokes out, is that I want to be able to use my faux leather to create a cover. And I think these will poke out too much. So this one, I'm going to actually bend it all the way in up to the binding, so that you see then it's not too big. But I think what I'd like to do is create a pocket. So I'm going to come back in with my tape, and I'm just going to run a bit of tape down and glue that. And then I'm going to trim off at an angle and create a little pocket there. Okay, and then I've got some interesting little pages. And I think I would like to do the same thing to this, that I think I'll fold back to here. And I'm not going to tape it or cut it, because then that page can be one that opens up bigger, and I can put a bigger size of thing there. And I don't mind a little bit of overlap here, but those big ones were kind of bugging me. And so that's how I want it. I want it to just be kind of easily contained and easy to use. So now that I have that part made, I have a special tool that trims my coils, and I will include the whole set in the description so that you could buy a coil binder and have it all ready to go. Now, let me show you how to use that tool. It's pliers. It's got a hole in one side, and then it's got a little tooth that pushes through the holes like that, and it cuts the coil. So you always put the tooth, and mine has a red dot on it, facing into your project. And then when you squeeze it, it cuts that off, and it puts a little crook in the end of it to keep it from coming off at the end. So there you go. Fun little book. And that did not take long. That was super easy. And I can save these because we use all different types of sizes of books and everything. Okay, so now let's talk about our cover. All right, so I'm kind of looking at this, and I think I'm going to go ahead and switch my cover, because I would like it to be a little bit more of an overlap for my snap. That just feels really tight to me. So I'm going to get a different piece of faux leather that's a little bigger, so I can show you better what it is I'm trying to do. Okay, I cut this piece of faux leather so that it's 6.5 inches this way, because I want it to cover my book completely. I didn't want any overhang. So the plan is this. We're going to bring this around, and you want to wait to do your faux leather until after you've done your comb binding, because you need to know your completed size. And so I want this to come over, and I'm going to create a little tab where I can put my snap to snap my little book together, okay? So you're kind of planning a little bit in advance about how you're going to do this. Now, I want that easily to come over. So what I'm going to do some markings on my faux leather, and I want my edge of my leather to be right there. So I'm just going to draw a line, okay? And just I'm going to double check to make sure that's going to cover both covers. That looks just right. And then what I'm going to do is find out where middle is. And then I'm going to just do a crease right there so I can see it. And then I'm going to bring my ruler, put my middle line on the crease because I want that to be right in the middle, like that. And then I'm going to just draw some lines. I'm going to bring this out, okay, to just a distance. Now, what I want to do is come back through and say, all right, how long do I need that tab to be for my snap? And so I'm going to put my snap right about there. So you see, you can make this any size, and then you're always going to be measuring your faux leather to work with that size. There you go. Actually, I'm going to measure it this way. So I'm going to come out 2 1/4 and 2 1/4. And now I can see right where to cut. Now, you could create a pattern in your Cricut machine and have the machine cut it, but it's just as easy, I think, to just go ahead and create your pattern once you have your spiral bound part of your notebook finished, because then you can get your size just right. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut along there, and I want to conserve as much as my faux leather as I can. There we go. Okay. There we go. Now let's check it out and see how it's going to work. Oh, I think that's going to be great. Now, before I do the snap, before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and put a name on there. Since it's my dear cousin Melody that taught me all about junk journals, I am going to go ahead and put her name on here with heat transfer vinyl, and we'll get this ready so that the next time she comes to visit, I've got a little gift for her. I have my Cricut heat press heating up. I'm going to turn that on, get it heated up. I went ahead and printed Melody's name and a nice little graphic to go with it. I want to save these little bits of vinyl. This is heat transfer vinyl, and I really do love my iVine weeding tools. And of course, I'll put those in the description so that you can find those. Let's get that weeded off. I really kind of enjoy weeding the heat transfer vinyl. It kind of weeds differently from the regular stick-on vinyl. Okay, there we go. So that just weeds super easily. So first, I'm going to just fold it in half so I can make sure, because this is going to flip up here. So this is my front, so I want to make sure I'm putting it on the front. And I'm lining up my ruler right here, and then I'm going to just put that transfer tape flat against the ruler, judge sizes, and then do one last look through. Make sure that looks good, and I think that does. So now I can lay it flat. I like that, and then we're going to put the flower down here, and I think that's good. All right, so I'm going to get a piece of butcher paper and I'm going to check my heat guide to make sure I get this done correctly, and then we'll go ahead and apply that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and lay my parchment on here, and the heat guide tells me it's 280 for 30 seconds. We're doing light pressure. Okay, so I'm going to take that off, and it says to do it as a cool peel. So I want to wait till this is cool to the touch. So I'm going to move this over to my cool desk so it can cool a lot more quickly. While we're waiting for that, let's get our scrap of faux leather here, and let's find a snap that's going to go really well with that. So we need the front, the back, and then the two parts, one that pokes up and one that pokes down. Okay. All right, now let's check our iron on here. Oh, that's nice. That seems to have peeled nicely. And that too. Okay, I think I'm going to like that. Okay, so I have my adapter in the bottom. Let me see if I can show you that. I have this adapter in the bottom of my KamSnap table press. And so I've got a couple of other parts in there. That cap is going to fit right into that. So that goes in the bottom of that, and then I'm going to screw this in to the top part. Okay, so we have that positioned in the middle. So now we're going to take the socket and just push it on there, put the whole thing inside of the press and press down. There. Okay, so that puts it on nice and tight on one side. So I've marked where my next part needs to go. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this other side. What I'm going to do is just put that through so that I've got a hole, and then I can come back in through the back side. Stick that through. Now I can move that. And then I'm going to now use the outie part. That's going in there. The whole thing slips into my press and pressed there. See that? Now, I made sure that the snap snaps on front, because when I open my book, I don't want that snap back here making it hard to write or glue. Okay, so I want those snaps to be right in the front, lined up like that. That's going to be super cute. I love the snap press. It just really is one of my favorite things. And I used, there are two sides to this. There's a shiny cap, and then there is kind of a matte cap, and I wanted to use the matte cap, and it just works so well. I love that. The last thing I want to do is adhere my faux leather to my book. And I'm actually going to use my tape runner. The tape is really pretty strong, and I'm going to go around the outside edge to make sure that those edges are going to be covered. And then I'm going to go ahead and give myself some strips right down the middle, so that is really going to be in there solidly. So then I'm going to come back, line it up. So it's nice and straight and has about the same amount of hangover on top and bottom. Make sure my snap's going to go in place okay. And then I can come back through and really push that down and make it. I'm really liking how this is looking. That's nice. When I do this, I'm seeing, look how when I open it, see how that page shifts and moves along the faux leather. So I'm starting with a little bit of a gap here, but as I open it, the gap becomes quite a bit bigger. For that reason, I am not going to adhere the front page. And that also can be a page then where something fun can be put in and something done. So I think we're going to just stop with it right there. And there we have our faux leather junk journal. But isn't that fun? Just a little journal of varying pages, different colors, and I'm just loving how that looks. But honestly, my favorite part, I think, is the cover with the snap, and I think my cousin will really like that. So there's that. Now, let me show you one other option to use your spiral binder. I have these different shapes of chipboard that someone gave me, and I just think they're pretty cool. And so I think what I'd like to do is bring those all together in a spiral bound thing with the spiral binding at the top. I'm going to bring back my spiral binder, my coil binder, and the tools. And so what I'm going to do, I'm keeping it at that same distance. I'm just going to go through and just get my binding holes in to each of those pieces of chipboard. Now you see actually how easily the spiral binder just cuts right through even thick chipboard. And this is thick. I think I'll do that this way because we've got a tab down at the bottom there. And a lot of stores carry all kinds of decorative chipboard. And so what I'm going to do is just go ahead and, boy, that is thick chipboard. I'm just going to go ahead and trim that off. And then I can go ahead and do the binding holes right there. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do some stacking. So we're going basically from smaller to bigger, so that as you look through the book, you're actually seeing that there's more behind. And I'm just going to fiddle with the colors a little bit. So you saw how easy that was to punch through those. Now I'm going to use the other half of that spiral that I used for our previous book. And you'll see just how easily these spiral bound books go together. They just, it's almost like they couldn't be easier. There we go. And chipboard, I love chipboard. There we go. So I'm going to come back with my tool. Remember, the tooth faces into the project. So I'm going to do that, and it gets rid of those really pokey, sharp ends. Then I'm going to flip it this way, point into the project, and do my second little cut there. And there, a whole new chipboard notebook. And in fact, that I can even use each of those little bits. So I could look at this book and open it this way, use it this way, or use it this way. And I think I'm going to go up like this. This one, of course, went side to side, but I think that's going to, with this one, I'm going to go just a flip up. So there you go. Easy, easy, these coil-bound notebooks. Okay, so I promised you some show and tell, so let's go ahead. Some of the things here I actually showed on our previous notebook making video, so I'm not going to show you those right now, but I do have my St. Patrick's Day idea book spiral bound. I did this also with my Valentine's Day book, and I just want to remind you that you can get that as a free download by joining my Facebook group, which is called Coming Home. You answer a few questions, and then this is available in the files section of our Coming Home Facebook group. The Valentine's Day one is there. The New Year's goal setting papers are there, and they'll just stay there all the time. So if you want access to some of those downloads free, you can get them at Coming Home on Facebook. Okay, now let me just show you a few of the ideas that I have done to use spiral binding. And a lot of these are things I did as a school teacher or as a parent teaching my own children. You can take these and maybe come up with some of the ideas of your own that are similar. Okay, so this first one, I used this with very beginning readers. And so since reading is basically interpreting symbols, this is how I started teaching my own daughter who has Down syndrome to read, and then teaching other children. Now, remember, you can extrapolate and make this your own. So a child would read a king. This is a symbol. This is a symbol. And so what I was trying to do is just teach children that letters are symbols, because if I look at the word keep, this is not the picture of a keep. These are symbols for that word. And so what I wanted the book to do is to slowly build that ability. And since we were studying the Middle Ages, I brought it all together in a book. And so the children would read a queen, a horse, and we would have talked about this so they will identify what that is. And then the last page, then we add more words, which are symbols, be night. So, but what I'm showing you is if you have a theme, you can build even simple books around that theme. This was an idea, and what I like is these are laminated sheets, and so we could put together several laminated sheets to be used repeatedly with a book. So then this has writing pages, but I can't seem to find my math book that has actually 5 or 6 different laminated sheets that children would daily practice the same functions over and over. This was a money one. We had one for time, for different math ideas. And going along with that, bringing that into a more grown-up thing, as I'm learning Hebrew, I have to repeatedly read. So what I did is a similar idea with this, but what I'm doing is keeping these pages that I repeatedly go back through and read so I don't forget. And I spiral bound that together so that, and I actually have 3 courses together here because I didn't want all 3 readers in a different area. So I just spiral bound them all into one big reader and then created my title, my title page that shows that it's all 3 courses. Just along that same line with my daughter, I have books that I have created, workbooks with work that she needed to do that I brought together in one big book for her. And I did that in a similar way with an alphabet book, where when we first made the book, it was actually long this way. We had another section of paper here, but the whole goal of this book was they would have these pictures, they would identify what they were, they would be all the A pictures, they'd actually use their motor skills to cut those out and then glue them on. So it was a cut and a paste and a think and an identify the pictures type of thing. So what was an 8.5 by 11 book eventually got cut down to about a 5 by 11 book. So that's just an idea too. You can spiral bind your documents. This is my master's thesis for my math master's degree, and so I had to bring it all together. I had to talk about what I was doing for that degree. I had to put in my statistics and my charts and pictures of student work, and so I was able to just bind that all together for my master's degree. So good way to use that as an adult. Then this was a fun thing. This was an art book that I picked up at a Goodwill that just had tons of art by famous and not so famous artists. And so I would use it in art class, and it was just a soft cover bound back with a square back, but it was really hard to keep open. And so when you have those books that are soft cover and they won't lay flat, taking off that back cover and then spiral binding is a great way to go. And so you can see, I mean, my spiral binder is only this long, and so I just went ahead and punched the holes, took off the back, and it's not even bound all the way down. But what was great is I could hold this up, and if we were talking about Maurice Pendergast, I could actually hold the picture up like this to show the students, and I would have information facing me so I could talk to them about the artist, and I would put sticky notes here as I prepared to help them so that I would know what I would be talking about. So that, if you've got one of those books that is soft cover and just won't stay open, or you need to use it for presentation, spiral binding is just such a great idea. So there's just a few ways to go ahead and use spiral binding besides your little notebooks or journals or diaries or all of those other things, little scrapbooks, mini scrapbooks. All of those things are great uses for a spiral binder. I prefer a spiral binder over a comb binder. This is a comb binding. It doesn't open as flat and nice as a spiral bound book does. This is a book my son made for one of his first science fair projects when he came from Africa. So we had all of the work we had done on testing things and just included it in this bound book. So comb binding is this, and you see a lot of that. It's cheaper. It does not hold up as well. And spiral binding is sometimes called coil binding because you literally have a coil that you're winding into the book. So that's just the difference between those two, and I far prefer a spiral binding. And as far as home machines, the spiral binding machine is not much more expensive than the comb binding machine. So there's some ideas. Now this is part 1 of my spiral binding videos. Part 2 will be coming shortly, and I will have even more show and tell for you of ways to use spiral binding and how to use some interesting materials that you might even be throwing away at home for some fun spiral binding ideas. And so be sure to watch for that. Please do subscribe. I want you to know that when you subscribe, that easy little thing of clicking that subscribe button, it helps me so very much, and I want to thank you for subscribing and ask that you please do, and make sure you go to Coming Home, get your free downloads. For all subscribers, once I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm giving away 2 Michael's $100 gift cards to 2 randomly selected lucky subscribers. And so please do subscribe and ring the bell and watch for future upcoming videos, particular part 2 of spiral binding. See you next time.